Histohoppers.
British medicine through time, Renaissance medicine, 1500 to 1700, Part 2. We will cover key individuals and progress. Important. The 2 C's, continuity and change. There will always be questions asking you to compare time periods, so make sure in each video you listen out for words to do with continuation or change. Key individuals. Andreas Vesalius. He was the most famous anatomist of the Renaissance. He had a strong interest in the human body and sharing his findings. His role in changing the understanding of the human body and medical training was significant for hundreds of years. Vesalius had studied medicine throughout Europe, including Paris, and he taught surgery at the University of Padua. He was a grave robber, so he stole bodies to dissect to improve his anatomical knowledge. He was also the first to dissect a human brain, doing so in front of audiences to demonstrate to students. Vesalius also openly challenged Galen's ideas on human anatomy. This hadn't been done in thousands of years. Works of Vesalius. 6 anatomical tables. This was published in 1537. It showed detailed labelled drawings of the human body, which Vesalius had worked on himself. It was written in 4 languages and became popular in the training and teaching of human anatomy. Fabric of the human body. This was published in 1543 and it was groundbreaking. It was based on the dissection of humans. It noted that Galen's ideas were mistaken as he had used animals instead of humans for dissection. In total, Vesalius found around 300 mistakes in Galen's work. For example, the human jaw was in 1 part, not 2, and blood doesn't flow into the heart through invisible holes. This work also contained many images of the body in stages of dissection to show as perfect a representation as possible. One factor that aided Vesalius was a change in attitudes. The decline of the church allowed Vesalius to acquire and dissect dead human bodies and challenge Galen during the scientific revolution. Another factor was technology in art. The printing press allowed thousands of copies of his books to be made, whilst the new Renaissance artists meant anatomical drawings were more realistic. The importance of Vesalius. His books were printed, copied, and widely spread. By 1560, his books were used to train doctors at Cambridge University. Vesalius was a trailblazer who encouraged other doctors to dissect human bodies themselves to improve their knowledge. As a result, in 1565, the first anatomical dissection happened in England. Eventually, doctors began to correct mistakes. He encouraged people to go against the church and Galen, but some were still reluctant to do this. William Harvey. He was an English doctor and lecturer. He made one of the most important medical breakthroughs when he discovered the circulation of blood. This had little short-term impact on Renaissance medicine, but it laid the foundations of the understanding of blood, surgery, and physiology. Harvey was born in 1578. He studied medicine at Cambridge, moving on to train at Padua's medical school. He later became a lecturer of anatomy at the Royal College of Physicians. By 1618, he was one of the royal doctors for James I and Charles I, meaning he had royal support for his ideas. He was inspired by Vesalius and, like Sydenham, suggested direct observation. Existing ideas on blood. People followed Galen's ideas, and he said the liver produced blood that was constantly burned up around the body. Veins carried both blood and pneuma, the breath of life, around the body. Blood flowed from one side of the heart to another through invisible holes in the septum. Vesalius challenged Galen and theorized that the veins of the body contained valves, meaning that blood only flowed one way towards the heart. This had not been proven, but gave Harvey the inspiration he needed. Harvey and blood. Harvey dissected both human corpses and live cold-blooded animals, who had slower heartbeats, to observe the movement of their blood. This allowed him to challenge Galen further and prove Vesalius right. Furthermore, he was influenced by the new mechanical water pump of the Renaissance, thinking that perhaps the human blood circulation system worked in the same way. Harvey's discoveries. In 1628, he published the book An Anatomical Account of the Motion of the Heart and Blood. This proved Galen's theory about blood production was wrong, as Harvey calculated that the body would have to produce 1,800 litres of blood a day for it to be true. He also proved Vesalius right by trying to pump liquid the wrong way up a vein. This showed blood only flowed the one way, and that it only contained blood, not pneuma. He also proved arteries and veins were linked together in one system, and this was done by tying a tight cord around an arm to cut off the blood flow in the artery. Harvey's theory was that blood must pass from arteries to veins through tiny invisible passages. His work proved blood circulation from the heart, which pumped blood around the body. Impact of William Harvey. Big impact. He added to the voice, arguing for more dissection and experimentation, showing it worked. He proved Galen wrong on blood anatomy, encouraging further challenges. He proved blood circulation, which was vital to the later improvements in surgery and blood transfusions. Small impact. Progress on the understanding of blood was slow until 1901 with transfusions. His ideas were slow to take on, and Galen's ideas continued in books until 1651. It took Harvey's work 50 years to appear in universities. The understanding of circulation did little to improve medical treatment, as doctors disliked Harvey's ideas. Overall, William Harvey still had a considerable impact, even if not immediately during the Renaissance. Thomas Sydenham, aka the father of English medicine, also known as the English Hippocrates. In 1676, Sydenham released Observations Medicae. It was a groundbreaking book, which was used for over 200 years in training and treatment. It contained these ideas. Doctors must rely on their own observation and practical experience, rather than just reading books. They should visit the sick, take their pulse, and make detailed notes on the patient's health and symptoms to ensure the correct diagnosis was made. He stated that the four humours was completely wrong and that God did not send disease. Sydenham also argued that there were species of disease and these needed to be classified. For example, he differentiated scarlet fever from measles. When the species were classified, it would make the correct treatment easier to find. However, he still believed that disease was caused by atmospheres and didn't know the real cause. Sydenham is known for introducing quinine to treat malaria and iron to treat anemia. Paracelsus. He declared Galen is a liar and a fake. He believed alchemy could cure everything. Robert Hooke. He used one of the very first microscopes to view plant cells and small animals such as fleas. He was able to publish detailed drawings of these in the book Micrographia. Richard Lower. In 1665, he made the first blood transfusion between animals. The Royal Society printed his work in their scientific journal. Van Leeuwenhoek. He discovered bacteria using a microscope. The Royal Society put the discovery in its journal, but he called them animalcules, and he didn't realise the importance of the discovery or that bacteria cause disease. How much progress was there in the Renaissance? How much progress was there in the Renaissance? Ideas on causes of disease. There was some progress. In an age of scientific thinking, Sydenham and Harvey encouraged direct observation of the sick, alongside making notes on symptoms rather than simply using textbooks. Also, urine charts were no longer used due to scientific developments. There was also no progress when it came to ideas on causes. In the Renaissance, they were no closer to finding the correct cause of disease, despite scientists seeking to make discoveries. The majority of physicians and healers still believed traditional ideas. During the Great Plague, people still blamed God and miasma, and the four humours were still used. Prevention. There was some progress as efforts were made to clear miasma, such as draining sewage and bogs. Most effort was made in response to the Great Plague, for example, the quarantining of those with the plague. Also, the dead were buried far away from towns in plague pits. The rich were also still encouraged to follow the regimen sanitatis. There was still little progress in terms of prevention though, as towns were still filthy. The government made some effort, but not enough, and most prevention schemes focused on miasma and, during the Great Plague, superstitious beliefs. Treatment and care. The progress made here was that there was small growth of some specialist hospitals. Anatomical knowledge was improving, and the New World brought new herbs and spices, for example, quinine. However, progress was stalled because hospital numbers were reduced because of the dissolution of monasteries. New treatments, alchemy and transference grew, but they didn't work, with the chemical mercury actually making Charles II more ill. Plus, old treatments remained. Most people continued to be cured for at home or by wise women, whilst physicians remained expensive for most. Medical knowledge. There was some progress in terms of long-term impact. Vesalius improved anatomical knowledge through dissections. Harvey proved Galen wrong in his studies of blood. Sydenham challenged Galen's ideas also and encouraged direct observation. His book Observations Medici was used in medical training for 200 years. The Royal Society also encouraged experimentation and research. However, in the short term, there was no progress. Their studies did almost nothing to improve medicine in the Renaissance. Harvey's discoveries took 50 years to become part of medical training. Dissection might have been made legal, but most physicians trained using textbooks by Galen until the late 17th century. What factors helped or hindered progress? The Church. The declining power of the Church during the Reformation meant that the critics of Galen would not be silenced any longer. This encouraged those such as Harvey, Sydenham and Vesalius to openly challenge him. Also, dissection was no longer banned by the Church, so anatomical knowledge could be developed. But most of the ordinary population still believed in God and followed the Church, meaning that ideas on cause, treatment and prevention were still influenced by religion. For example, during the Great Plague, people still thought it was punishment by God. Science and technology. The scientific revolution helped the development of medicine, as it was an age where the Royal Society, Vesalius, and Harvey all made new discoveries and challenged the 2,000-year-old ideas of Galen. They were also aided by new technologies which allowed new discoveries, such as the microscope, which allowed Leeuwenhoek to first see bacteria, as well as the water pump, which inspired Harvey to theorize that blood circulated around the body. The invention of the printing press in the 15th century led to the widespread production of books, and as a result, literacy increased. As printing became quicker and cheaper, medical books could be printed and slowly became the basis of medical training and therefore improved knowledge. The first scientific journal, Philosophical Transactions, was released by the Royal Society in 1665, whilst books by individuals helped spread their discoveries. For example, Vesalius's Fabric of the Human Body, which helped to improve anatomical knowledge. But We shouldn't overestimate the impact of science and technology on medicine during the Renaissance, as it did little to improve things at the time, and for the majority of people, these discoveries meant nothing, since they couldn't read. The monarchy and government. The Royal Charter of Charles II was crucial to the Royal Society, as it gained them support, money, and publicity, which helped their work. Without him, the discoveries of Hooke and other scientists may not have been recognised. Even Charles I supported Harvey, but the closing of monasteries by Henry VIII had a significant impact on hospital care, as most hospitals were attached to the church. Plus, it was only during the Great Plague when the government acted to prevent the spread of disease. Still, the government then took a more active role in preventing disease. Homeowners were fined for not cleaning the street outside their house, and minor criminals picked up rubbish as a punishment. And Henry VIII closed down the London bathhouses in the early 1500s to stop the spread of syphilis. As well, Charles II's support of the Royal Society was incredibly important. Respect for tradition. There was a continued respect for tradition, which caused medicine to lack progress still. Physicians still respected Galen, and ordinary people continued to use traditional medicines passed down over the years. It took over 50 years for Harvey's new ideas about blood circulation to be taught in university, as many doctors argued he was wrong for contradicting Galen. Individuals. If it wasn't for individuals like Vesalius, Harvey, and Sydenham seeking improvement, the discovery of blood circulation wouldn't have been made, the four humours wouldn't have been challenged, and anatomical knowledge would have remained basic.
The end. Thanks for watching, and remember to like and subscribe.